What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Rick Knows Hoops. I'm your host, Tyree. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new. It's a place where we talk about NBA basketball. And there's no more NBA basketball on TV, but it's the off season, which is a fun time. You know, player movement, new faces in the draft. We get to see. We've seen a lot of head coaching changes already. Trades and stuff is going to be happening, once the draft is around. We've already seen some trades already go down, like with the Boston Celtics. But I want to just reflect on this past NBA season because I think with everything that had gone on, the pandemic, the shortened season, condensed scheduling, players going down left and right. Players dealing with health and safety protocols. I still believe that this season should be deemed a success. I really do, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And there were a lot of great performances from players this season. We've seen a lot of growth from some young guys. We've seen guys like Trae Young take his team to the conference finals, as in his first postseason run. We've seen more Luka Magic, young guys. Donovan Mitchell played well in the playoffs. We've seen a lot of guys perform from the younger generation of NBA players, and we've seen some vets also go out and do their thing. Chris Paul taking his team to the finals. I guess Giannis has been in the league for 8 years, winning the championship, doing something that a lot of people deem that they wouldn't be able to do, or if they didn't get it done this year, they might never get it done because the Nets are going to be back fully healthy next season. I think it was a roller coaster ride of a year, but personally, my opinion, I enjoyed this basketball season. I would call it a success. So, let's just talk about some of the good times, man. I mean, I think, the playoffs is just fresh in the minds of everybody. And I think for the average NBA viewer, they might have not been as interested because the big names aren't there, like the LeBrons, the KDs, the Steph Currys. Those guys weren't in the finals. They didn't make deep playoff runs. They didn't make it to the conference finals. I think you could have looked at that and been like, well, these guys aren't there. I'm not going to watch. But I think this NBA finals that we just watched was one of the better finals that we've seen probably since 2016. I mean, the 2019 year was pretty cool. But I couldn't say that I was as in tune to that finals. The bubble the one in the bubble, I wasn't really as in tune until the Heat got onto the board in that series. Like, I wasn't really in tune to that series. And the first two KD championships in Golden State, I wasn't really in tune to those finals either. So it's like, for me personally, I feel like this is the most enjoyable finals that I've watched since the 2016 finals, which was like pretty much the greatest finals ever, I would say. And that's what I would call this finals one of the best. Even though it went 6 games, but the last 3 games were super competitive. We get to see the growth of Giannis. We've seen, Khris Middleton ascend after not playing so well early on in the series. We've seen Jrue Holiday affect the series in a great way without being able to shoot the ball as well, except for Game 5. And we got the quest of seeing if Chris Paul could get that first championship and Devin Booker aiding in their first playoff run. We got to see things like that, and two teams that I would say before the season nobody thought that would be the matchup we got in the finals. I was an avid Suns. I was rooting for the Suns pretty much all season because of Chris Paul, because I just really fell in love with the way that this team played. I still didn't think that they were going to be in the finals. I think I picked the Lakers to beat them in the first round. And of course, some things had to happen along the way for both of these teams to get there, but they made it. They gave us a compelling finals, and once again, shout out to the Bucks. I gave them a lot of praise in my video last night, so shout out to the Bucks once again. But I think that was just a culmination of what this NBA season was. I mean, a lot of great things, from the beginning to the end, I would say. We got to see, we seen big trades. The James Harden trade kind of shocked the world. Even though we think the Rockets kind of got fleeced in that. But the James Harden trade shocked the world. I mean, we got to see another team form a big three after it's been kind of dynamic duos for the last couple seasons. We've seen another big three get formed. But they weren't unbeatable. They had to deal with the injury bug and stuff, which riddled them all season long, and it came into effect in the postseason as well. We got to see, we seen LeBron still early on in the season. Before he went down with his injury, he was in MVP conversations, which was incredible at his age to still be doing, playing some of the best basketball of his career. But the injuries, then it's like, the Lakers are the 7th seed. They had to play in the play-in, play against Steph Curry. So nothing was guaranteed, and then a lot of people were picking the Lakers in the first round, but then injuries happened again. I mean, that's just how crazy this NBA season was. But I still think, even though we hate injuries, worst part about sports as a whole is injuries. But I still think through all those injuries that we dealt with, we still got a very good product during this NBA season. And, the MVP race was pretty cool, pretty enjoyable. It's good to see the bigs get some love. Jokic, Embiid were pretty much the front runners for the MVP for most of the season. Steph Curry had an incredible season. Didn't make the playoffs, but had an amazing stretch. I think in the month of March and April, he had an amazing stretch where he was dropping 30 after 30. Then he was dropping 40s. He had a 60-point game early on in the season. We've seen incredible stuff. It was just good to see Steph Curry back on the floor and playing at a high level, showing that he can still produce if his counterparts aren't there. And it's going to be great to see when Klay Thompson does come back how good this Warriors team could possibly be. We've seen Paul George play not well. He played great in the postseason, especially after Kawhi went down. He stepped up. He took his game to another level, to a superstar level, which we love to see. I like to see Paul George, shake those haters off, man, because he played so well in the playoffs. He had big-time games. He went into Utah, Game 5, no Kawhi, and was the best player on the floor by far. We love to see stuff like that. There's a lot of crazy stuff. Like we mentioned, Giannis ascending. I think Giannis shown that, his style of play is effective, and he was the best player on both ends of the floor for most of this postseason, and he showed up big in big games. Game 7 against the Nets, KD went off, most points scored in the Game 7, but Giannis was effective on both ends of the floor, ultimately helping them win that game. If KD's shoe was a little smaller, this might be a different kind of ending to the NBA season, but it's not the case. We seen Philly probably meeting the end of their run with their young duo. Ben Simmons might be on the move this offseason. They're taking trade offers. So, them losing in the second round to an Atlanta Hawks team that we all thought the Sixers were better than could shake up the league a little bit. The Atlanta Hawks showing that, a young team started out 14-20 on the year and made it all the way to the conference finals, 2 games away. If Trae Young doesn't get hurt, who knows? They could have made the finals. Like, we really don't know. That's just the type of season that, this year's been. And, it's going to be pushing into the offseason. A lot of teams disappointed this year, and we'll see what they do this offseason. The Boston Celtics weren't as good. The Portland Trailblazers, I think, underachieved. We'll see what Dame decides to do. If he does request a trade, if he doesn't, these are storylines that we got to be following. And teams that surprisingly, the Utah Jazz were pretty much the best team all year long, and the Suns were right behind them. I mean, they kind of shocked everything. I think they shocked everybody being the top 2 teams in the NBA. The Knicks, I don't know how I got this far and I ain't talking about the Knicks. That was the story of the regular season, the Knicks being good. And even though they did underperform in the postseason, it's great to see New York basketball being good because, look, mentioned this several times, the NBA is better when the Lakers are good and when the Knicks are good, when the Boston Celtics are good. When those historic big franchises are good, basketball is just so much better. The Bulls too. I forgot the Bulls. The Bulls made moves like at the trade deadline trying to go all in, just didn't work out. But there'll be another team maybe to watch to make a leap next year. And, a lot of teams next season are going to be like, man, we should be the next Phoenix Suns. Like, I mentioned that before. Like, a lot of teams will probably be thinking that. So, I think what this season gave us is going to propel us into a great offseason, even though the free agent market isn't as compelling. I mean, Kawhi is the biggest name on the market, but, he has that partially torn ACL, so he might not even play this season. But, there's still some, I think, pieces on the market that can help, teams get themselves, better, get into the playoffs or get into contention, teams that want to do that. The Charlotte Hornets were a good story this season. LaMelo Ball was Showtime. Anthony Edwards shown that he's a really good basketball player, too, for the Timberwolves, #1 overall pick. This draft class, they went through a lot, but guys produced. Tyrese Halliburton produced, Sadiq Bey. And I know I'm missing a lot of guys, but a lot of guys really play great basketball, man. And that was probably the most weird circumstances for any rookie class. No summer league, barely any training camp time. They just really got thrown into the action. So shout out to those guys for adapting on the fly and being able to produce. Yes, shout out to those guys. And yeah, I'm excited for the offseason for sure. But I just wanted to talk, like, this regular season was so good. Seeing guys be first time All-Stars, like, you know, Jaylen Brown's one of my favorite players. Seeing him be a first time All-Star was really good. You know, Jason Tatum taking a big step forward. And now the Celtics have made moves to try and get themselves back to where they were, you know, a couple years ago. The coaching changes around the league. Brad Stevens stepping up into the front office. Now the Celtics have a new coach. You know, new coaches in a lot of different places. And, you know, it's a quick turnaround because the draft is right around the corner. I believe next week is the NBA draft. You know, Cade Cunningham coming in. Jalen Green, Mobley, Suggs. There's a lot of young guys that can make a good impact on their teams right away. And I'm excited to see these young prospects. I'm excited to learn about some new guys as well, because I know the top guys, but I don't know everybody in this draft. So I definitely gotta do my draft research. Probably gonna do a mock draft for y'all. See how that goes. But yeah, I think all things considered, the COVID year, the shortened regular season, a lot of injuries. Hopefully guys that dealt with big time injuries like Jamal Murray, Kawhi Leonard, and others get healthy. You know, season-ending injuries. Hopefully they get healthy. Excited to see what next season can be with mostly everybody getting back to full health. The Nets getting back to full health. The Lakers, we'll see what they do in the offseason. You know, there's a lot of teams that think disappointed with the way that their year went and given the circumstances, and I'm sure there will be a lot more contenders next year too. So yeah, I think this regular. I enjoyed this season, man. I enjoyed covering it through this aspect. You know, talking to you guys. You know, just being able to talk basketball, man. I really enjoy it. And yeah, the off season, it's not gonna slow down the grind. It's probably gonna ramp it up even more. So I appreciate y'all for tuning in. I appreciate y'all for sticking with me this year. And let's get into the off season, man. Peace.